Good morning, everyone. So I'm delighted to welcome Richie Miller to the show. So I've first heard about Richie on I get all these emails from different people, including Simon Zucci and PIN meetings. And one of them was about Richie Miller, who I think you created, well, not exactly out of nothing, but you created a 48 room HMO with none of your own money.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was only your third property deal.
Yeah,
which I think is absolutely incredible. So I think, especially for someone like myself who's been in property for over 20 years, and I haven't done anything like that yet. So it just shows what is possible. So I'm really interested to learn how you did it. But so I think that's the theme of the talk today, how I created a 48 room HMO with none of my own money. But before we get on to that, maybe you could just talk about your sort of life. I think you only started property 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe just briefly, like what you did before that, and then what you did, what it was about property that made you decide to go into it.
Yeah, I did a variation of sports science at university. Had a gap holiday for 2 years, a couple of ski seasons, and some backpacking around.
Wow, that's a great gap holiday.
yeah. Ran out of money afterwards, had to get a job. I then went to Royal Military Academy Sandhurst in 2007 for a year's training and became an army officer.
Okay.
And I finished a 14-year career last month.
The army.
Yeah. So I left the army last month.
That is tough, isn't it? They make you do lots of push-ups and stuff like that, don't they?
Yeah.
Not easy.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Bit of sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
Away from home.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's just our side. It's not even the enemy. So
yeah. Just the friendly forces doing that to me.
Oh, that's right. Wow, okay. That's incredible. So actually, you were working. You had that as your career when you were also doing this property deal, were you?
Yeah, full-time job and a young family while doing all my property stuff.
Wow, so that is incredible because lots of us have all these excuses that we haven't got enough time and everything. So okay.
Yeah, that's probably why I'm telling my story. If I can do it, then I think anyone can do it. Yeah.
But I think that military training must have helped you with discipline and stuff and getting things done, I'd have thought.
The ability to make a decision, particularly when you don't have all the information, and to not freeze with all the options that are there in front of you, just to pick something and go with it, following your gut instinct. I think that's helped a lot from a military training.
Yeah, because you look at other people, including myself sometimes, and we just prevaricate. We've got, especially if it's a big deal like your one, we just think, well, it's easier to just. It's safer just to delay and just but when you've got a family and a job, you don't have time for all that. You just have to go for it. Okay, so what was it that made you so you're working hard as a soldier, and then what was it that you thought in your spare time you start sort of doing a bit of property?
So I've always been told, always known that property is a good investment and it helps your pension, and it's good to have some property for the equity growth and stuff. And if you get a bit of cash flow, that's nice and it always helps. I got married at the start of 2015, and a couple of months after getting married, my dad gave me a book to read. At the time, my parents were living in Germany. Dad was a civil servant and they'd been in Germany about 17, 18 years, and they didn't own their own home in the UK. So Dad bought Amazon's top 3 books on how to buy a property. One of those was Property Magic, and Dad said it was the best out of the 3 that he read, and gave it to me to read because I was talking about buying a property. But you change jobs in the army every 18 months, every 2 years, and it's normally a move to a different location in the UK or overseas. So I've moved around quite a bit and been away quite a bit with work, so I hadn't had the chance to be in an area long enough to know it well enough to buy a property. So in 2015, after getting married, I thought now's the time to do it. Start a married life. Life's getting more serious. Let's buy a property.
So this book. So you already told your father that you were interested in property, had you?
Yeah. Me and him had been talking about it for a few years, but they were in Germany. So ideally, I would have bought somewhere close to mum and dad because they were living in the UK, close to retirement. They could have kept an eye on the property for me because they were in Germany.
Yeah.
with a plan to retire to the UK eventually, then I couldn't buy a house near to them. Yeah.
There's a good book, by the way. I remember reading it about 10 years ago.
Mm.
And I mean, like you, I bought several books off Amazon, property books, and I did find this one was, the most intelligent and informative. And so it's by Simon Zucci.
Yeah.
And I really liked his methodology, and it just seemed very, very logical about how to really maximize your return on investment with the least risk and so on. And also a lot of case studies, and when you see a case study, it really brings it alive that it's possible, because it's one thing to read a book and know the theory, but to actually see how someone did it is it's a whole. And when you actually do it yourself, that makes it even more real.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, so you read the book. So how did this about I'd like to do this. I'd like to get involved. So what did you do next?
So we went to Sheffield to visit some friends, and the friends we were visiting, her and my wife used to live and work together a few years before we met in London, and their family own and run an estate letting agency in Sheffield. So this girl's brother, friend's brother, took an afternoon off work and talked about property. I asked a few questions based on property magic and stuff, and he made it real and blew my mind with what you could do with property, with cash flow and equity and just property investing. So with his help, we found a 3-bed property in Sheffield that was being repossessed. It would go in for 85,000. Managed to get it for 77, just under 77,000, I think it was. Spent £6,000 on a light refurb, just tarting it up, making it look nice again, a bit of TLC. And 12 months later, it was revalued at 109,000. So I extended the mortgage. If I'd remortgaged, it would have cost 2,000 or 3,000 with all the fees and the searches and new lender and stuff, and I would have released £10,000-12,000, I reckon. By extending the mortgage with the current lender or the same lender, it cost £95 for them to do a desktop valuation, and then they just gave me a second smaller loan on it, and that released 27,500, about 4,000 or 5,000 more than I put into the deal.
Okay, so did you say it was on the market for 85,000?
Yeah.
So the market for 85, you bought it for 77, and you spent so it was like 10% less than the asking price, which is sort of typical discount is possible to get. And then you so part of that, so the increase in value to 109,000, so how much of that was because of your refurb, or because it was wrongly it was already marketed at below market value, or how much was it because
it was quite a tired property. It was being repossessed. It wasn't in the best condition, but a lot of it was just surface mess and dirt.
Yeah.
So 6K at a 3-week refurb was enough to make it livable and nice again, to look nice. And then getting it revalued 12 months later, the market was picking up. I had the same tenants in there all year, not missed a single payment, and it was going well. So it just valued up well.
Yeah, so that's I think like many of us, our first property deal we just sourced through an estate agent like that. It's the obvious place to start, and it must have given you a lot of confidence, the fact that you're able to pull all your money out and some more. So effectively after a year, it turned out to be like no money down deal.
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought this is good. Let's do this. It wasn't cash flowing much. It was only £130 a month because I had a residential consent to let mortgage on there, so I was paying capital and interest. But it's, as Simon says, it's a cash machine. It's given me £100 plus each month.
With no money left in, so it's scalable infinitely, basically. I mean that's pretty good for a first deal, isn't it? And you at that point you hadn't had any property education. You knew someone who was into property, and you leveraged his knowledge.
Reading Simon's book and leveraging someone else's knowledge. So it worked really well. I then researched property education and training a little bit more, because at the end of the book there's adverts for all the PIN meetings and all the training and stuff that goes on. We also looked at a couple of other providers that were doing training, and I listened to a few webinars. One of them was with Simon Zucci. I've no idea what the webinar was on, but at the end of it, there was a massively discounted price for Property Magic Live. So I signed up to attend that, and also spoke to PIN head office as part of my research, just to ask about the training and stuff, and signed up to do the accelerator course, the 3-day mastermind accelerator course. So I did live and accelerator over the summer and September, and then started mastermind September or October, whenever it started.
A few years ago.
Yeah, the end of 2015.
2015, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's great. So, and then what happened after that?
I then left mastermind.
Yeah. Did you do any deals in your 9 or 10 months?
No, so I stopped the training. I left the course. So I started, it must have been October 15.
Yeah.
Or was it October 16? Might have been October 16.
Okay.
Yeah, October 16, because my eldest was born in February 17, and he was. So I missed the November mastermind session because of army commitments. I missed the January one, and then our eldest was born 3 or 4 days before the February session, and my wife said I wasn't allowed to go, understandably. Yeah. So I spoke to the PIN office, or the head office, and explained the situation. I'd already missed a couple of sessions, and I knew I was going to miss another couple of sessions that in the next couple of months because of work commitments. Yeah. So they let me leave the course, which is actually really good because it gave me a chance to read a load more books, do some more research, and do some of my own learning. And then I restarted Mastermind at the end of that year, October 17.
Okay. Okay. So that you were sort of reading books, looking after your sort of new baby and stuff, and working, and then you restarted the course in October 17. Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened after that?
We moved house. So in the 2-year period of starting, leaving, restarting, and finishing the main mastermind course, we moved house 3 times.
Wow.
And our second child was born as well, towards the end
you're busy.
of the mastermind year.
Yeah. Why did you move house so many times?
The army.
Oh, of course.
Just the way my career worked, and getting a promotion and having to go and do a course for 9 months. I finished a job, did a job for 9-10 months, moved and did a course for 9 months, moved again, and then we moved to Bristol. We've been in Bristol for the last 2.5 years. So on the mastermind course, really good environment, really positive, learnt loads. I got 2 rent-to-rent flats that I use for service accommodation, so short-term letting. Got those through a property source, or I met through.
So you did. So during the mastermind, you did rent to rent. You started doing rent to rent because obviously that's just, even though you'd already got done this one, which turned out to be no money down, no money left in deal. You decided not to follow that same strategy again, but you wanted to rent to rent. And one of the advantages, of course, of rent to rent is that you need very little capital to start off with, just a little bit for refurbs and stuff. So again, it's one that gives very high return on investment. Well, you don't get any capital growth with that, do you?
No, you don't. But I deliberately went for high cash flow strategies with little money down because I wanted to replace my army salary so I could leave the army. And I needed cash flow to do that. And I spent my life savings on the mastermind course.
Right.
It was either do another 3-bed and try and cycle my money out, or it was paid to do mastermind. And I no regrets for choosing to do the mastermind course because it's let me scale up to where I am now.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've done mastermind myself. I'm actually in the graduate program at the moment, and I know it's a difficult decision if you've got a chunk of money, whether to spend it on education or invest in property. But I think there is an incredible value of education, not only in the knowledge, but just the mindset of just being around other people who are doing stuff. It just makes things more possible. And
absolutely.
Interaction, So you spent life savings on education, so you didn't have enough to actually buy more property, but you could do this rent to rent to give you cash flow. And that's what, one of them are things people often do look to do first, isn't it? To replace their current salary before they sort of do anything more speculative. So you did one rent to rent. Did you say service?
Yeah, you've got two rent to rent flats through a property sourcer, and I got a manager. I could, with the sourcer, I could have got quite a few more properties, but I was struggling to get them to stack up paying management fees, because management fees are expensive on serviced accommodation.
So, because these were serviced accommodation, so you rented a flat for sort of single let rent, and then you rented it out as serviced accommodation. But even so, you found it hard to make that profitable.
I averaged £300 to £400 a month profit on each flat over a 12-month period.
Okay.
If I'd been self-managing them, it would have been much higher than that, probably almost double that each month. But the two flats were in Southampton, and when I got those, we'd just we were in the process of moving to Bristol about then. So I lived too far away to manage them myself. I needed hands-off management.
So that £300 to £400 a month, that included the management fees you paid.
That's my net profit after paying.
So it's like sort of free money.
Yeah.
So I mean, suppose that's 350 times 12. Just doing the maths, that's about sort of 5,000 a year for each one, and then so it's £10,000. So basically, you got £10,000 a year. Extra cash. So with no investment, which is great, isn't it? So you could easily do a few of those and then replace your income. So so it's not a bad strategy, considering it didn't involve any time really, I suppose.
Those two flats are very good, and it was difficult. I didn't find any other flats I felt comfortable enough to take the risk on them stacking up well enough with paying the management fees. That's when I did two, and I decided to go for HMOs after those two, because my best month I made £3,000 net profit in 1 month. My worst month I lost just over £1,000.
Right.
And service accommodation works really well, but it's unpredictable. And I wanted the predictability, and I felt I could get that from HMOs. Okay. So I spent a few months writing landlord letters and sending them out, and I chose to do that in Sheffield because I already had a property there. I already had a managing agent who was doing a good job with my single lets, and I knew that I wasn't ready to leave the army yet because the income wasn't there, so I needed hands-off management. And you get more for your money, and the yields are a bit better if you go up north compared to Bristol and down south.
Yeah. The yield's better, but the capital growth, well, up until now, the capital growth has not been as good. But with an HMO, that's not the most important thing, is it? So you did landlord letters in Sheffield, and how many HMOs did you get?
I had quite a few offers. Ended up just doing one. So it's direct to vendor response to one of my letters, and it was a 6-bed student HMO. One bathroom, 6 bedrooms, licensed.
Wow, one bathroom. So I bet there was a queue for the toilet at certain times of the day. Okay.
It was a smelly property, as Simon's actually describes them. It wasn't. It was cheap. It was basic, and the old owner was just milking it for cash flow, but not getting much cash flow because it was so old and outdated compared to the rest of the market.
So did you refurbish at all, or?
Yeah, I did a 2-story extension and a back to brick refurb. Kept it as 6 bedrooms, but I made all 6 rooms en suite. So it worked really well. It wasn't all the money back out. I could only get 70% loan to value on the remortgage rather than 75%. So that left quite a chunk in there, which I was hoping to come out, but it left 100k in. And I put some of my own money into it, some family and friends' money, and then mostly investors' money. I leveraged my knowledge and experience from Mastermind and my 2 flats, to raise the money.
That's great. I actually did a similar thing, HMO thing in the West Midlands. It was actually a 2 or 3 bed old Victorian terraced house that I bought and refurbed into a 5 bed HMO, each with ensuite and kitchenetting. And like you, I think I got about 70% loan to value, so I had to leave a lot of money in the deal. Which is fine if you can get investors and so on. So I mean, and how did you find the investors?
Through networking, through pin meetings mainly. Yep. Yeah. Some friends from masterminds who did the course with me, and from standing up and doing a 20-second pitch at the pin meetings is mainly how I raised it. Okay. As well as telling some friends and family what I was doing and raising some money from them as well.
Okay, that's great. So so using this money, so because you're getting such a high cash flow in return, you're able to give the investors a good return on their cash.
Yeah.
And then so it's win-win. So that was a great strategy. And then you decided after that, rather than do another one like that, you were trying to go in for a bigger deal.
Not deliberately, no. So I bought that. I think we completed on it in late October, early November, a month or 2 after finishing Mastermind. The refurb finished February, March time, 2019. And we broke the rental ceiling for the area by £50 a month.
So people were paying you more rent because it was such a nice property.
Yeah. It went to. I deliberately went to the top of the market.
Oh yeah, so it's just before we go on to your next deal. So I was because some people are sort of a bit wary about HMOs because at different levels of the market there can be horror stories. But you found student a good sector of the market to
I changed it from students to professionals.
There was students before the previous.
There was students before.
And then
now professionals, you pay all year round and break the rental ceiling by at least £50 per month per room.
Yeah, and also I think students are much more willing to live in worse conditions, so they would probably be happy to pay less money and share a bathroom, for example. Whereas with professionals, you could obviously earn more money once you did it up. So that made sense.
Yeah.
And okay. And did they have so in addition to they had the they had in the room they had an ensuite, shower, toilet, and a little kitchenette.
No kitchenette in the bedrooms, just one kitchen.
Oh, just one. They had a shared kitchen.
Yeah.
They with like sort of they have like a shelf for the fridge each. Or
something
like that.
Yeah.
And that they worked and that they managed to live harmoniously.
Yeah, so far.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I've actually lived in houses like that myself. It's normally been okay, but as long as you've got, it's not your problem, and as long as you've got a good managing agent who can sort out the problems. Yeah, that's great. Anyway, so back to your next deal. So what happened then?
So as this was coming to a close and we're finishing it and starting to get tenants in there and talking about, well, I was thinking about getting the refinance sorted out. I said to the letting agent that I like this, it's going well, it's going to cash flow really well for me, and I'll do lots of these. He laughed at me because he'd seen me a couple of years before go from no property experience knowledge onto a 3-bed house, pretty standard, and then up to a 6-bed HMO, which was quite a big leap going from a 3-bed to a 6-bed. And he laughed at me and said, "What, as a joke, what about an HMO on steroids?" Right. I laughed back, and as Simon tells us, it doesn't matter how big the deal is. If it stacks, I can find the money because I've got the knowledge and the network. So he showed me the Marples, the 48 beds HMO that he was doing tenant find for. His agency was doing a tenant find for. I changed my pants, and so let's go and have a look at it and stack it up. If nothing else, it'd be a good learning experience just to go and stack it up and have a look at it and talk about it. So I viewed it, really liked it. Through PIN, I met an investor who was retiring, had a big SAS pension pot, and wanted to invest with someone young who would go around and do all the running around and all the work.
SAS pension pot. Okay, now this is something. So I've started looking into SaaS. So this is a great source of money, isn't it? I think people don't realise they have their money sat in a pension, and then the pension providers are normally very risk averse, so they invest it in low yielding stocks and shares and so on. Whereas if you do a SaaS one, it gives you a lot more freedom to invest in property.
Yes, yeah. So I've worked with 2 investors with 2 different SaaS pensions. It's a good source of funds.
And I think it's possible if you've got a different type of pension. If you've got a normal money purchase pension, you can convert it to SaaS as well, can't you? So,
yes, you can. Yeah, I believe so.
So yeah. Okay, so you've worked with 2 investors with SaaS pensions.
Yeah.
And that was the source of some of your money for this.
Yeah. Yeah. So with this investor, I showed him the property and he really liked it. He was unable to come to Sheffield to meet the owners. So I met the owners on my own, negotiated a discount on the purchase price and shook hands to buy it.
So this 48 bed HMO is on the market, was it?
Yeah, been on the market about 18 months.
Really?
2 sales had fallen through.
Okay.
Very good location in the centre of Sheffield. Apart from essential maintenance and maintaining all the compliance stuff, the owners hadn't touched it for the 18 years they'd owned it. So the inside was almost 20 years old and a bit tired, with 48 students going through it every year.
I bet, yeah. So so that's presumably, was that the reason why the previous sales had fallen through?
I think so. I'm not really sure. Lenders, I don't know why, but 2 sales had fallen through before I made my offer.
And so you found out about, so it was through this, was it through, so how did you find out about this one? Because this was in Bristol, did you say?
So no, this is in Sheffield, and I was living in Bristol at the time.
So it was your existing agent who was...
Yeah, my letting agent, they were doing tenant find for it, and they knew it was on the market. And he told me about it as a challenge, I think, and a bit of a joke to see if I go from a...
So he probably never dreamed to actually do it. And so it's pretty much luck, really, that you told you about it.
Yeah.
Quite easily have not told you about it. It wasn't you actually were out looking for it. So, okay.
So after agreeing to buy it, I phoned up my SaaS investor.
This is all while you had a full-time job.
Yeah.
And young babies.
Yeah. 2 kids under 2 and full-time job, and lived 3 hours away from Sheffield.
Wow.
So I phoned up my SaaS investor, both very excited. He then started speaking to his SaaS pension people about getting the money released so we could buy it with a mortgage.
So at this stage, had you secured the deal or not?
Yeah, so I secured it on a handshake with the previous owners.
At a discount from the asking price?
Yeah. So the asking price was 1.8 million.
Yeah.
And I negotiated it down to 1.5 million.
Okay.
Which is just over 16% discount.
Yeah.
My SaaS investor then pulled out. He realised or was told that he can't use SaaS pension funds to buy student property.
Right.
So he had to bow out. So I then had a choice of, do I phone up the owners and pull out of the deal because my investors pulled out, or do I try and raise the money with a different investor, with different investors? Decided to give it a go. So I formed a partnership with 2 JV partners. We raised the money between us and bought it.
Okay. That's great. So, so as you said, so it's with none of your own money. So the JV partners provided the finance.
Not all of it, but they brought £100,000 each with them. Then between the 3 of us, we raised the rest of the money from investors and our networks.
Oh, you raised it all from networks. So you didn't use any finance from...
So we bought it with a mortgage, but we raised the deposit through investors, or raised the rest of the deposit through investors, and all the refurb money through investors as well. Okay,
yes, because obviously you would get 70% of 1.5 million, but that still leaves about 500,000 or something like that.
I managed, my broker was very clever.
Yes.
He found me a lender that would lend at the value instead of the purchase price.
Okay.
So a RICS valuation was done as part of the purchase process, and they valued it at 1.8 million, which was the original asking price. So a lender would lend at 1.8 million, and they would count the 300,000 discounts I negotiated towards the deposit.
That's great. I didn't know actually. I know that that's possible with bridging finance, but I didn't know that's possible for. So this is commercial finance because I know sometimes they value based on income, so they didn't value it based on income.
It
They
was on
value
the, it was on the current income.
Oh, it was based on the current income.
Based on the current
That's,
income with students and what they were achieving. That's what
yeah.
the valuation was based
That
on.
was your that was your initial purchase. You borrowed based on the current income of what the students were earning, and then you refurbed it after that. You rented it to professionals, which
To students and professionals. The original plan was to keep it with students, but we missed the start of the academic year in 2019 because of the refurb delays. So we had 3 strategies for tenants, students, professionals, serviced accommodation, and I've used all 3 strategies over the last 12 months. Now it's just students and professionals, and I don't mix them on the same floor.
I think that's wise not to mix. Actually, I mean, I wouldn't put. If I had a noisy student above me, they do make a lot of noise, don't they? Late into the night. But doesn't noise travel down? So when you keep the students on the ground floor, is that how you do it?
Students are on floors 1 and 2, and then 5 are professionals.
Okay. I was interested. It's interesting that you didn't do serviced accommodation anymore because you've experienced in that. So why?
We tried it. Tried it last summer, and it was working really well. But we had to stop after 6 or 7 weeks because the rule of 6 came out with the COVID restrictions.
That's all to do with COVID. So if it hadn't been for COVID, you might have kept it to serviced accommodation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, if we get an empty floor again, I'd happily do service accommodation on it. We were getting, I had a couple of birthday and stag parties come through in the 6 weeks we were doing it last summer. So every weekend we were doing it, it was filled up, and we were making 2,000-3,000 net profit each weekend from it. And we were just starting to find some midweek guests and reach out to set up some midweek stuff, and then we all had to stop it because of.
I mean, I've never done any service accommodation, but I have been. It's quite an attractive idea, isn't it? Because I've stayed in it and I know how much they charge.
Yeah.
So how did you learn how to do serviced accommodation? Did you do a course in it or read a book? Or
I did some virtual training and spoke to people doing it already, and I did all my research on serviced accommodation for my 2 flats that I got on Mastermind. Although I don't manage them myself, I know all the processes. I know how the manager works and operates and the systems they use. So I wanted to make sure I understood it before I invested in it. If I didn't understand it, then it was too risky.
It was too risky at first, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so that's great. So anyway, so really because of COVID, you decided to do HMO instead, which is
keep it as an HMO. Okay.
So you've got students on the first couple of. How many floors is it?
There are 4 floors of 11 bedrooms and 1 floor of 4 bedrooms, giving you the 48 rooms.
Yeah, wow. And so what property was it before it was an HMO?
So I believe it was an office block. But so the ground floor is commercial units, and it was a pub because someone died in it in World War II during the Blitz. But then after that, it was turned into an office block, and then the people I bought it from, they turned it from offices into HMO.
Because they're relaxing the planning laws in the next few months. There's a new Class A mercantile abode class, which is going to make it really easy to convert office block. I mean, in terms of planning, to convert office blocks, pubs, etc., shops directly into residential property. So that's a great opportunity for anyone to sort of create something like this from commercial property. So that's great. So after you did it up, you increased the rents. So then presumably you got it revalued, did you? and
Yeah, we
refurbed?
had it valued in February last year, which was great timing, just before COVID hit in March.
Yeah.
And it was valued at 2.75 million. That was with the commercial units as well. I'd agreed to buy the freeholds and the 2 commercial units from the freeholder, who was separate to the people I bought the Marples, the HMO from. So I was then going to be the freeholder of the block with the
So
commercial.
2.75 included the commercial units.
Yeah,
So you
including
actually
commercial
bought
units.
that. So that was in addition to the 1.5 million for the. Yeah, you also bought the commercial units.
Yeah.
So how much did you pay for them?
It's going to be 375, and I bought those outright. But I wouldn't have used any money. I would have used the money that was released. So I was getting it. So I was
Yeah.
going to value it with everything, and the equity released would clear my investor debt and buy the freeholds and the commercial units.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. So you said so. So 1.5 million for the original HMO, 375,000 for the commercial units, which is less than about 1.9 million, and then you did refurb costs of how much?
Ended up being just over 300,000. We had a budget of 140, 150 with 30, 40,000 contingency.
Wow.
There were some problems with the refurb. I made the decision to sack the project manager a couple of months into it, and then it took us a few weeks to get momentum going again with a new team, get them to come in and come into a job that was half done, fix a lot of the bad work that had been done before, and get it finished.
So that was so this is something that always scares me about refurbs, that they can go horribly wrong. And I suppose it was great that you made the decision to sack the must have been a difficult decision, because you might have thought, well, he started to sack it, could he?
Yeah, I've never sacked anyone before.
Oh, really?
The decision was, do we keep him and just manage it much more closely and try and get it back on track, or do we get rid and almost start again? No regrets for making the decision I made, but I probably took a week, 10 days longer than I should have to make the decision after we started talking about it properly. I did a couple of surprise visits up to Sheffield, unannounced to the manager and the team on site, and just started walking around, seeing what was going on and how they were doing it. And on one of those visits, had a heart-to-heart conversation with the project manager, and told him I wanted to part ways.
Yeah. So, I mean, how did you find both the initial project manager and then the new one that took over from him?
So we, after agreeing to buy it, the old owners said that we could have early access to start the refurb work over the summer before we bought it if we exchanged with 5%. So we managed to get the exchange done in early July with a 5% deposit, and then we actually completed the purchase at the end of August. But we had all of July and all of August in the property starting the refurb work, so the 2-month head start. That was all agreed quite short notice to early July when we were able to exchange. So we put some social media adverts out for project managers, and also the letting agent reached out to people that they'd worked with and knew about, and then interviewed several people and spoke to a couple of people. And the guy we got, very experienced, very capable, very good at 5-6 bed HMO conversions from 3-bed houses. Knew what to do, but his organisation management wasn't good enough.
Right.
Over 5 levels with 15, 20 blokes on site.
Yeah.
And it was out of his depth. The rip out went really well, really quick, really easy. No problems doing that because it's quite simple. As they started fixing everything and putting in the new kitchens and playing with the bathrooms and all the plumbing and stuff, that's when they were starting to get problems. So yeah, I made the decision to let him go. And then we had one of the staff from the letting agency. They moved down into an office, on-site office, to work from there and keep an eye on the build site every day. And one of the subcontractors we've been using, they stepped up to sort of take over the management and become the main contractor. So between the managing agency and this building team, they oversaw the rest of the work being done.
Okay. So it's a bit of a joint effort.
Yeah.
And it did come in twice the budget. You said 140 plus 30k contingency, and it actually came in at 300. I mean, do you think that if you'd have had a different project manager from the start, it would have been less, or do you think?
Yeah, I think we could have done it for less than 180 if it had been managed properly.
Yeah.
So my lesson from that was to hire slowly and fire quickly.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been such short notice from, oh, you can go in 3 weeks if you want, if you can exchange, because all the students are leaving for the summer. Oh yeah, that's great, because that will make it much easier to have the property ready for late September when all the students start coming back after the summer holidays. That's why we did it. But 3 weeks wasn't enough time to get the schedule of works in detail finished to a good level and find the project manager and the team and get everyone in.
Sure.
It's all a bit rushed. So big lessons learned, expensive lessons learned, but we survived it and we got through it.
Well, it was an expensive lesson. Like if there wasn't very much profit in the deal, then it could have all gone horrifically wrong. But because it was such a great deal, so much money in it, then it doesn't really matter that much if things like this went wrong, as you proved. So, but the lesson you learned was, yes, to be slow to hire, so you'd take a bit more time. And I mean, also, I think people can be very convincing at interview, can't they? I've had that before.
Yes.
They seem the perfect candidate,
yeah,
because they can just talk and they've got this energy about them, this confidence. But when it actually comes down to doing it, they're not as good at that, unfortunately. Oh, great. Anyway, so you spent 1.5 for the HMO, another 375 for the commercial units. It's about 1.9. You spent 300,000 on the refurbs, so it was about 2.2 in the deal, and then you refinanced it for 2.75. which was
tried to refinance it last year for 2.75. It was valued at that at the end of February last year, and then COVID hit in March, and all the lenders shut their doors and everything closed for a couple of months.
Right.
The valuer pretty much said late February, when the valuation was done, COVID was starting to be in the news, and there were worries and tremors going around the economy and stuff. And the valuation report has COVID written all over it, basically not sure what's going to happen. So it was down valued a little bit. It could have been another couple 100,000 higher than that. But then COVID hit, and our occupancy levels were below 75%. When last summer, when the market opened again, we tried to get it valued again, but the lenders were saying, until you're at 75% occupied, I'm not going to look at you. So we had to stay on the original mortgage, and we had all the money from the investors. I had a couple of investors who wanted their money back. Well, they all wanted their money back, obviously, because their money should have been back for Easter 2020. We raised an additional 150,000 to replace some investors' money. For those new investors, it was a very safe deal. The purchase was done, the refurb was done. We were just waiting for tenancy levels to increase to do the remortgage. We still aren't at 75% occupied because not many students came back for the academic year that's just finishing. And COVID stopped us doing serviced accommodation, which was not occupancy levels, but it was high cash flow. So we've been hovering at 60, 70% occupancy for the last 12 months or so. Speaking to several different brokers over the last year, eventually found a broker that could get us a mortgage without being at 75% occupied. So in February this year, we started that process again, or late February, early March, and we completed the mortgage a couple of weeks ago. We've separated the commercial and the freehold out. So the residential HMO bit was valued at just over 3 million on its own. And I'm going through the process this month of buying the freehold and the commercial units.
Okay. So you have revalued it now.
Yeah,
Oh, you have remortgaged it.
it was valued at the end of April, and the remortgage came through a couple of weeks ago.
So you remortgaged it now based on a value of 3 million.
Yeah.
That's just for the HMO.
Yeah.
Considering you bought it at 1.5, so you double the value of it. And that is still in sort of the COVID era. So obviously it will go up when you start. You might start doing serviced accommodation in the future, and then that value will go up even more. But anyway, by refinancing it, that allowed you to pay off all the investors, and which means that you own it with your JV partners due together.
Yeah.
But with no money left in. So that's great, and it cash flows well.
It will do in September when all the students come back and the professionals come back to work and stuff. We're hoping that after the summer, we'll get occupancy levels up above 90%.
So how much cash flow would you be expecting?
Expecting about 14, 15K net profit each month.
14 to 15,000 net profit a month. Yeah, with no.
Yeah.
So that is.
That's at 90% occupancy.
That's a 9% occupancy, and you're hoping that in the future would be more than that because you'll be able to do serviced accommodation.
Yeah, potentially. If we get an empty floor again, without any hesitation, we'll do serviced accommodation on it. But at the moment, there's no plans to rejig all the tenants around to create an empty floor.
Yeah. So depending on what happens, but that's it's a life-changing deal, isn't it? So, and considering it's your third deal,
yeah,
I mean, and it's a combination of, well, I mean, and the fact that you did it while having a full-time job and young family is what makes it really, really mind-blowing for me. But I mean, there was a bit of luck. Well, he had good luck. He found out about it. You had bad luck because the refurbs, but obviously, you know, a lot of skill yourself and good sort of gut, following your gut and so on, and rectifying the mistake of basically of the big mistake of hiring the previous project manager, which was the one thing. But even that, you know, it cost you maybe 120,000, but in the grand scheme of things, there's so much other value in the deal that it didn't really matter that much. Yeah, so that's great. So then what's your plans for the future?
So I left the army last month. I'm now a civilian again, which is very exciting. I've just started a part-time job with a Bristol property developer building affordable homes. I've got no experience of new build stuff. So it's an opportunity to help give back to community in a way with the affordable homes that I'll be helping do, as well as a big learning curve for me. In the process of buying the freehold and the commercial units underneath the Marples, and we're going to turn one of the commercial units is empty, and we're going to turn that into 5 studio flats and refinance out of that. And I'm also in the process of buying a 35-bed HMO over the summer, hopefully.
Wow, that's great. So you're that's 3 different things, isn't it? So you're going to do affordable homes in Bristol. You're converting the
affordable homes is the company I'm working for. It's not my investments. I'm an employee of them part-time. I'm going to learn a lot and also help them, hopefully.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and then you're converting commercial to res conversion, commercial property to 5 studio flats. I imagine a 5 studio, considering you bought it for 375,000, the value of the 5 studio flats would be worth considerably.
It should be a no money left in deal again, that one.
Yeah. Okay, and then as you say, another 35-bed HMO, trying to sort of recreate the success of your other one. Yeah, sounds great. And you're also, so if people want to work with, I think you're also looking for angel investors, aren't you? So if people want to work with you in some way or invest with you, so how can they get hold of you?
Through LinkedIn is the best way, or my email address, which I'll give to you to put out with this video.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to just say what it is now? Or,
yeah, Richie, Richie at Gerisa, Gerisa,
How on, how to spell that second one?
GE,
Yeah.
Golf Echo, Romeo India, Sierra Alpha, Gerisa-group.com.
Is that the name for your company?
Yes, it is. Yeah, GE for Gemma, my wife, RI for me, SA for Sam, our eldest.
Okay.
I created the company before our second one was born, so he doesn't get his initials aren't in there, his letters aren't in
Oh,
there.
right, okay. Fair enough. Richie at Gerisa-group.com.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. And also LinkedIn, they just search your name, Richie Miller, which is an easy way of doing it. I was actually looking at your LinkedIn profile earlier. So yeah, that's great. So I think we're coming to the end of the hour. So is there anything else you'd like to say before we wind this up?
I've had a very up and down journey over the last couple of years. It's easy to look at people. I looked at people when I was first starting who had a lot of success, and you look at their journey and you imagine it's just a straight line going up. The reality is it's a lot of peaks and troughs on that journey. And I just want to encourage people to get educated and take action. If you don't know what you're doing, it's a gamble. If you know what you're doing, it's a calculated risk.
Yeah.
But the knowledge is useless without taking action and implementing it. So if I can do it, anyone can do it, I think.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's great advice, and I hope that people watching this are inspired to take action. So yeah, it's been great having you on the show, Richie. That's all for now. Hope to actually meet you in real life one day.
Yeah, hopefully one day.
Where are you based? Southampton.
Bristol.
Are you based in Bristol?
Based in Bristol. Yeah.
This is your new home.
Yes.
You occasionally go to Sheffield, I imagine.
Yeah.
Well. Okay.
Yeah, semi-regularly.
Okay. Great. Well, great to meet you.
Yeah.
All the
Thank
best.
you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.